It's story time.
If you're so smart, how come you can't spell Mississippi? Written by Barbara Esham, illustrated by Mike and Carl Gordon. My dad is the smartest person I know. He is one of the busiest civil rights lawyers in Chicago, and he works hard to keep justice in our city. For the past year, my dad has been getting ready for the big case. Have you ever worked on anything for an entire year? I'm a third grader at Westover Elementary School. My name is Katie, and I'm only 8, but I've been working on something too. It's called observation. It's fun because, let me tell you, I've seen some strange things. Like the time David, a boy in my class, couldn't resist squeezing the pudding cup from his lunchbox. He had to see how much pressure the lid could take before, well, you know. And the time my little sister insisted that our family change her name to Eduardo after she finished watching the Cooking with Eduardo show with Grandma. My little sister is only 3 years old. I guess she thought it was time for a change. Just last week, I saw Mrs. Higgins driving through town with 14 Chihuahuas in her car, and those were just the Chihuahuas that I could count as she was passing us. As you can see, observation is a worthwhile pastime. But the strangest thing that I have ever observed happened tonight while I was practicing for my spelling test. I asked my dad if he could help me with the toughest word on my spelling list, Mississippi. Usually my dad loves to help me, but this time he said, "I'm not sure. Go ask your mom." How can you, Dad, one of the smartest people I know, not know how to spell Mississippi? I asked in astonishment. Well, Katie, I have never been a very good speller. In fact, I don't believe that I have ever spelled Mississippi correctly. Actually, there are a lot of words I've never spelled correctly, he answered. That is the strangest thing I have heard, Dad. Even stranger than Eduardo, I replied. How did you make it through the 3rd grade if you couldn't spell Mississippi? Well, it wasn't easy. I was often ashamed of not being able to spell the words on my spelling tests. In fact, some of my classmates even made fun of me, he said, with a serious smile. Dad, do you mean that you were kind of like Mark Twinkle? He sits in front of me and he can't spell anything. I guess I was like Mark Twinkle, he said. It's tough when you're the kid in the class who works extra hard and still has trouble. I had to spend so much more time on my homework than my sister spent on hers. I would still come home with a C- on my spelling test, and that was on a good day. Oh, that's terrible, I replied. It was terrible and also confusing. I mean, my dad is smart. Learning to read was just as difficult, said my dad. I was the last kid in my class to learn how to read. Sometimes I would hide my head when my teacher would ask me to read to the class. Just like Mark does, I shouted. How could this be? My dad was just like Mark Twinkle? This information did not make sense. Katie, we have talked about dyslexia before, remember? Dyslexia is a word used to describe the difficulty that some people experience with reading and spelling. Like me, he said after looking over my math homework. But Dad, how do you do your job? How can you be so smart if you can't spell or read very well? I asked. Katie, dyslexia does not mean a person isn't smart. In fact, some of the greatest scientists, doctors, and inventors struggled with symptoms of dyslexia, my dad said with a chuckle. Now, I've observed many strange things, but could it be true that Mark Twinkle is the next great mind of our time? Is it possible? I would need to do a little investigating before I was convinced. On Saturday, I asked my mom to take me to the public library. I'm a whiz at the library, and it didn't take long to find a book about dyslexia. It included a list of people throughout history who struggled with reading or spelling, but I'm confused. Now that we know about dyslexia, Why is this still a secret? Why hasn't anyone ever mentioned it in school? Like this guy, Dr. John R Scoyles. He works as a neuroscience researcher. One of his book reports is titled, "The Etiology of Autism, Neuroembryology, and Prefrontal Neocerebellum." Whoa, he researches things I can't even pronounce. Where is the librarian when you need her the most? I guess I'll learn about that in 5th grade. I turned to the page to read about Archer J.P. Martin, a chemist who won the Nobel Prize in 1952. Fortunately, the librarian walked by. "Mrs. Meeks, can you help me read this? Some of the words are a little big," I asked quietly. "Sure, I love to see children reading on the weekends," she said. "Let me see here," said Mrs. Meeks. "Archer Martin's experiments include the discovery of a method for detecting pyroelectricity by observing the attraction of a metal plate of crystals that had been immersed in liquid air." "Katie, do you need this information for a book report?" she asked with a puzzled look on her face. No, Mrs. Meeks, I'm just doing a little bit of investigating." Detecting pyroelectricity in liquid air? Is anyone following me on this one? "Do you want me to keep reading?" Mrs. Meeks asked. "Oh, yes, please," I replied with my most polite voice. I needed help to get through this book. Helen B. Taussig was a doctor in the 1930s. Many women at that time didn't even have a chance to go to college, but Helen Taussig studied to become a pediatric cardiologist. She helped discover a new way to help babies who were born with heart problems. She was the first woman to become a full professor at Johns Hopkins University, and she was elected president of the American Heart Association. "She was really smart," I said. "I have to go help some other children now, Katie. Do you think you can take it from here?" asked Mrs. Meeks. "I'll give it a try," I replied. "If Helen Taussig had trouble reading and writing, and she could become a pediatric cardiologist, well, I guess I can try to read this book on my own." Let's see, William James was a psychologist, one of the greatest psychologists of all time. It looks like he had a lot of interesting things to say. A few of them are right here in this book. "I don't sing because I am happy. I am happy because I sing." Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. Every good worth possessing must be paid for in strokes of daily effort. Hey, my dad has this quote framed. He keeps it on the wall for everyone to notice. Do every day or two something for no other reason than its difficulty. The names of so many amazing people are in this book, and it would take a long time to read all of them. I guess a lot of people who have trouble with reading and writing, and maybe math too, go on to accomplish great things. Writers, architects, scientists, entrepreneurs, actors, artists, athletes, presidents, doctors, lawyers, inventors, college professors, teachers, and even school principals. I wonder if my teacher, Mrs. Peterson, knows about dyslexia and all these great people. I have a feeling that most of these great people had someone to help them through the tough times when they might have been feeling frustrated or sad. Maybe their parents were patient and supported them. Maybe they had a teacher who could see how smart they were anyway. Maybe the classmate sitting next to them didn't make them feel bad for not being the fastest reader or the best speller. Now I know why my dad likes that William James had to say so long ago, "Do every day or two something for no other reason than its difficulty." Is this what people who struggle with dyslexia tell themselves each day before school? Did my dad say this to himself through the tough times when he was trying his best to learn to read and spell? I can't wait to go to school on Monday. I think Mark Twinkle needs to know how great his mind is and what incredible things he might accomplish one day. Maybe I'm just the right person to tell him. The end. Just the beginning.
The end.